This is Midrash Parshas Re'eh, entitled God's Early Warning System.
Of course, the Chumash starts out in the most stark way possible. There are two paths you can choose in life, the blessed or the cursed. So the Midrash discusses, among many other things, a way for you to get messages to help you stay on the right path, and a way for you to sort of get back on the wagon to be redeemed if you got off the path. So let's start with the messages. So the Midrash says outright that God is whispering in your ear messages all the time, and if you don't hear them, then there become afflictions. What's interesting is the proof text that the Midrash brings is no less than a pasuk from the Mitzrayim story. Let me read it to you. It says, so, of course, what's very confounding is, wait a second, we're talking about a scenario already where the Chumash identifies that God is hardening the heart of Paro. Is that a proof text that God is giving us messages? That message was designed to fall on deaf ears. God was hardening his heart. Well, perhaps the Midrash picked that to make a comparison between Paro, who had a big ego and naturally would not listen to God. God didn't really have to do much heavy lifting to get him to not pay attention to him. And perhaps the same is true of us with all our distractions and all our rationalizations. We can drown out those messages very easily. The Be'er Ma'amarim says, that's the commentary on the Midrash Tanchuma, that's just 4 ways in which God can send these messages: by prophecy, by a dream, by afflictions, and by rebuke. Now, rebuke doesn't mean someone's going to tap you on the shoulder and start ranking you out. Rebuke could mean that God can use any form of communication that you encounter in the course of your day. A billboard, a conversation you overhear, a conversation that you have with someone. So in other words, anything you hear or read could be a communication from God. In fact, there's something attributed to the Baal Shem Tov along these lines. I'll read it to you. Every single thing that a person sees or hears is an instruction to him in his conduct in the service of God. Okay, so now let's come to the other side of the coin. If someone needs to get slicha mechila for sins, what particularly could they do that will evoke slicha from God? The Midrash identifies 2 things: Shabbos and Meiser. Probably for very obvious reasons. Shabbos is the way we attest that God, created the world, and Meiser is the way we attest that God created your world and your workplace and your farm and your profits and loss and your stock market and all your assets. That's all from God. So therefore, those are the 2 pillars of faith that we can turn to if we need to repent. And of course, the Midrash takes a creative take on one of them. Then when you talk about Meiser, there's something called tithing from your talents. In other words, the Midrash spells it out. If you have a beautiful voice, then be a chazan. If you were gifted with great looks, then you can give your tithing to God by not succumbing to what society expects, the usual way that someone who's great looking would conduct themselves and who they would hang around with and their loose morals. All those temptations, you can tithe to God by not succumbing to that. It's a beautiful thought. There was an article recently about an Orthodox Jewish runner here in Israel who runs in a uniform that is tznuah, modest, and she says that's how she is serving God and showing people that someone can be Orthodox and still, pursue their passions and their dreams. So of course, even in our day, tithing, which is, giving tzedakah, is something that God opens him up, almost opens himself up to a bribe. Asher ta'aser, right? If you give, you'll get rich from giving tzedakah. One of the ways you're allowed to test God. So this is another in the category of things that you can do in order to get slicha and mechila from God. And based on the Baal Shem Tov, I said before that anything you see, hear, or read. So unfortunately, even this Dvar Torah will fall under that category as a message from God. Have a great Shabbos.